move on to our first work session, which I know a lot of you have been patiently waiting for, so I want to thank you for that. And it's a harmonization of the former borough and township stormwater ordinances and consideration of future amendments, and welcoming up Deanna Stockton and Jack West.
Ready?
Yeah, and I guess before you start, I'd just like to go over the process, because I know there's a lot of people here. So my recommendations would be, we hear the presentation from the two of you. If there's questions from council, you can ask questions, we'll open it up. If there's anybody who would like to make any comments, and then we'll bring it back to council. If you're looking for some direction from us, we can give that to you.
All right, so we'll start with process. Basically, what we're trying to do here is harmonize the former borough and former township stormwater ordinances. So process-wise, tonight is a workshop meeting to talk about some of the issues. There's 5 issues we want to talk about tonight. Then what happens, depending on the recommendation, we will prepare an ordinance. It comes back to council for introduction. The council then sends it to the planning board. Once it gets through the planning board, it comes back to council for a public hearing for adoption. So where we started this process probably last summer, staff working with the town's stormwater consultant, Joe Scupian, to try to consolidate the 2 ordinances. And the major difference really was in what we're going to be talking about tonight as a minor development. Major development, both in the borough and township, were very similar. So really the focus of the initial discussion was on what's the definition of a minor development. So so basically, you can go to the next. So basically, there's 5 issues we want to talk about, and one is the definition of impervious surface, the definition of minor development, the definition of major development, redevelopment, and then inspections. So you have the borough, the township. When we started, after we got our draft ordinance, we sent it to the Environmental Commission for their comments. They worked with the Stony Brook Millstone watershed. So over the last couple of months, staff has been working with PEC and Stony Brook Millstone watershed to try to come up with a harmonized ordinance. So the first is, what's impervious surface? It's really anything, the definition is a compacted layer of material that's highly resistant to the infiltration of water. So it's a roof, sidewalk, roads, patios, driveways, and decks. So what you have is in the borough, you have a pretty detailed list of what's considered impervious. Township had a very short list. And really what we're proposing is to use the borough's definition, but add pools. And with impervious surface, there's really 2 reasons to define impervious surface. One is in calculating stormwater runoff. Obviously, the more impervious surface you have, the more runoff you have. Second reason is more from a zoning perspective, as to the more impervious coverage you have, the less vegetation you have, the more disturbance to a site, the more trees have to come down. So that's why we're trying to limit the amount of impervious surface that can go on a piece of property.
Should we ask questions on?
Yeah, if you want anything with
With a deck that has big cracks between the boards, isn't that?
Well, first of all, it doesn't have big cracks between the boards.
Well,
So it does have a crack. And actually, in the former township, the deck was not considered impervious.
If you said they were, say, like 1/8 of an inch or something, I'm just wondering, because it seems like water goes right through them.
Well, I have a similar question just about the porous paving, because you will often think of that as being something that would be...
So that's why I tried to preface that there's really 2 definitions. One is for stormwater management, as to how you consider it, and the next is for zoning purposes. So if you said porous pavement is not impervious, then can somebody with a 1 acre lot pave the entire lot with porous pavement and say that, you know, my lot is, I'm perking the water into the ground, I'm doing good? I don't think you want an entire lot to be porous pavement. That means all the trees come down. Same with a deck. If you said a deck, you know, is considered pervious, then you're disturbing more of the land. What happens with the deck is what's underneath the deck is not necessarily good material for infiltrating the water. It's a conservative way of looking at it. Most ordinances do consider a deck to be impervious. So the big issue really is minor development, and that's really was the focus of staff's first go-around with consolidating the ordinance. So in the borough, former borough, anytime you added more than 400 square feet of new impervious surface, you had to provide on-site stormwater management, and it's for the 100-year storm, so it was pretty restrictive. Township was a lot different. First of all, in the township, they had there's a table that, based on the size of your lot, there's 2 columns of allowable impervious coverage. The first column, what we call column A, is if you're under that percentage and you don't impact your neighbor with the runoff, you don't have to provide any stormwater management. If you're between columns A and B, then you do have to provide some type of stormwater management, and column B is the maximum allowable impervious coverage. So there's a lot of discretion with the former township's ordinance, but in a good way, that depending on how the property was developed, it gave the engineering department the ability to get the best situation for adjacent properties. So if you had a case where you're under column A, but you're still impacting the neighbor, we could make them do some type of stormwater management.
Jeff, how would you determine whether you were impacting the neighbor until the work was already done? I mean, some things you would think maybe there's unanticipated consequences.
No, from the topography, we know where the water's going to go. So we know if it's draining directly to the neighbor's property, there's going to be an issue, and we try to mitigate it as best we can. I'm not aware of even the case where we thought there wasn't going to be a problem and there was. In 90% of those cases, whether it's a developer or the homeowner, we get them to fix that if there does happen to be a problem. But just based on knowing the topography, the land, going to the site, looking what's going on, we know where the water's going to go and what the impact is going to be on an adjacent property.
So were there cases where people said, my neighbor's water's running into my property, but you didn't think it was? I mean, because I agree. I mean, I was just wondering.
I wish I had an inventory call like that.
Yeah.
I never had a problem until they built a house next to me. No, that does happen.
And you feel pretty sure that you could tell?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, and if we do miss something or it's not built for plan, we can get it fixed. 99% of the time. I mean, I'm not aware of any cases that are ongoing where there's a problem that we weren't able to address.
Well, you can address it, but it's not easy. I mean, once it's happened, well, we should forge on.
So basically with this, and I may be going a little out of order with the slides. So this is an area that staff has a little bit different opinion than what PEC had recommended. One is what's the minimum impervious coverage that triggers this? Staff kind of suggested that we go with the borough's 400 square feet and use that as the minimum. PEC initially came up with using 250 square feet as the minimum. So anytime you added any more than 250 square feet of impervious surface, you'd have to do stormwater management. The second area where we have a little bit of a difference of opinion is in that discretion part of the ordinance, where we want the ability that there's cases where you can physically tie into the storm sewer system in the street, and there's cases where that's actually better than providing on-site stormwater management. And I can give you an example where this just came up 2 weeks ago at the planning board. we had a major subdivision. It was 2 existing houses to be torn down and 3 new houses to be built. Properties sloped from the street to the properties in the rear. So staff asked the developer to extend the municipal system a couple hundred feet up the street and then tie all the roof leaders into the municipal system. The downside, you don't get the reduction. However, in this particular case, they were under the allowable amount in column A in that chart that we talked about earlier. But you're not getting any reduction. So I'm taking the water off the property, putting it in the street, it goes into the street, into the stream, and ultimately affects somebody downstream. That's the negative. But in this particular case, the concern was that if I put a dry well in the back, once that dry well is filled, then all the water goes on to the neighbor. And because of the soils in Princeton, we have a lot of clay, so dry wells aren't the best solution. They work to a degree, but once they fill up, it takes time for the water to perk out of them. So staff would like some discretion in cases where you're under column A, but you still are impacting on a neighboring property.
But in that case, if we had the power, which we didn't have at the time, wouldn't we be able to do something better? I mean, could we have, for the environment? Because that's really pretty horrible to put all that water into the storm sewer rather than percolate through the ground, right? So,
let me take a step back as to
Okay.
where this chart came from, and why, if you're under column A, you don't have to provide any stormwater. And I don't know how many years ago it was, but in the township, Joe Scupian had done an analysis of all the properties, and if all of the properties developed to that percentage that's in that chart, what would the impact be on the various streams? And his determination would be a minimal impact on the streams. Now, it's difficult for me to say that when you had 7 inches of rain in 2 hours in July and everybody got flooded, but that was the analysis that Joe came up with, and that's how that chart was developed. So, so basically the current township, you don't have to do any stormwater management if you're under that percentage.
so when he was making that determination, what do you mean? Like,
So if the percentage, and
I mean, saying some water is going into the stream, so I'm pretty sure it's like this, because I met with the, I've been learning more about stormwater and what happens to it. What amount is okay for the storm sewer, to go into the stream? How did he pick that?
what he did was to determine the capacity of the stream.
Oh, so the stream itself wasn't going to go up the
Right.
banks?
So now, and again, you have to differentiate between, you'll say, well, my backyard was flooded because the stream overflowed. Well, it's supposed to do that. That's the floodway of the stream. So that is supposed to happen. But what he did was he calculated based on the volume, the capacity of that stream, that if 20% impervious was the number, if everybody put 20% impervious and all the water went into the various streams and rivers in town, here's what the impact is. And in his analysis, it was a minimal impact, and that's how that chart was developed.
Okay, thank you.
Now, as I said, it's difficult to convince people that who get flooded what seems to be now, every year or twice a year because of the increase in intensity in some of these storms. So that's really the issue with the minor development. Next is I think it was major development. Well, let me, actually, I want to, what other towns are doing. I didn't cover that. So we looked at, and this is the Stony Brook Millstone watershed, and what have other towns done? So if you look at the chart, Berners and Franklin, for a minor subdivision, minor development, used 1,000 square feet as the minimum. Fanwood had 200, but that was discretionary at the discretion of the municipal engineer. And Hightstown had 250, but that was a voluntary program, kind of a recommendation to a homeowner doing a project. So, based on that, we felt that the 400 that the borough had was a good number. And it's really kind of a council decision as to whether it's 250 or 400. You know, I don't have a good argument to say why 250 is a bad number. It's, you know, the more you do, the better. It gets into cost. You know, one of the issues with this requirement is the cost to a homeowner. I mean, obviously, we don't care necessarily the cost to a developer, but that gets passed on to somebody buying the house, or if somebody's doing an addition or a patio, that's a cost that the homeowner has to bear.
Well, do you have any kind of examples or ballpark figures of how much more it would cost?
Yep.
Okay.
So for a small addition, you're probably talking an increase in the range of about $5,000. And again, it depends what you do. If the homeowner does their own, digs their own rain garden and plants it themselves, that number would be cheaper. But to have a contractor do it for a small project, you're probably talking in the $5,000 range. A larger project, you're probably talking in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. And these are all single-family homes, not talking about commercial development.
I mean, I should add to that point, it's definitely at least $5,000 to build, we've been through this, but you also have to add on the engineering expenses too. So, I mean, that's $1,500 to $2,000 for, you know, unless you're an engineer, so.
So that brings me to a good point, back to the minor subdivisions. One of the suggestions from PEC and Millstone is come up with, they use the formula of for every 250 square feet of impervious coverage, you have to store 500 gallons of water on site, whether that's a rain garden, dry well, or something else. So it's a ratio of 2 to 1. So we looked at, well, how do you justify that? Where does that number come from? And that's based on the 25-year storm, all of the rain falling and being collected on site. So I looked a little bit deeper as to, from an engineering perspective, can I justify that? And I think I can from, you know, when you do stormwater management, there's a lot of factors. It's not as simple as just coming up with a number. It's based on the type of soil, the slope of the soil. So in principle, there's different types of soil, A, B, C, and D. And A soil is the best, that's sand, where you know the water goes right through it. C is, you know, B and C are kind of marginal, and D is unfortunately the majority of the soils in Princeton. But I kind of looked at, if you took a cross between the C and the D for the 100-year storm, I did come up with that 2 to 1 ratio. So what staff would also recommend is that we use that 2 to 1 ratio, whether you're using the 250 or 400 or any other number, that it's still you store on site at a ratio of 2 to 1. That takes the cost of the engineering out of it, where, you know, whether you have an architect draw up your plans, it's a simple formula as to how you determine how much you have to store on site. So now we can go to major development. So major development in both the borough and township, if you disturb 1 acre of land, it's considered a major development. We weren't proposing any changes. PEC is asking that be basically cut in half, that it's a ½ acre of disturbance or an increase of 5,000 square feet of impervious coverage. Again, staff doesn't necessarily have a problem with that. Our only concern, and we're going to talk about this with some of the other issues, is when this is implemented. And this is kind of a little bit of a follow-up as to Joe's discussion about the ordinances and how fast can staff get them done and how fast can council adopt them, is what we would like to do at this point is to do the minor development and the impervious to harmonize the 2 ordinances. We're not against this change for major development, but we want to make sure that we understand what the ramifications are. Are there, you know, a few of the other towns have done it, and it may not be an issue. We're not against it. We just think we want to spend a little bit of time and determine, you know, is there any other ramifications? What does it really mean? So let's go to the next.
Well, can you just, is disturbance, does that mean, say, putting like planting grass, I would assume grass would be.
Well, if you're cutting
disturbance.
woods down,
Cutting
plant
woods
grass,
down,
that's
planting
disturbance.
grass.
That's disturbance. So if you take a 1 acre site and you clear it and you put your building, your parking lot, and the rest is grass.
Stop.
So, all right, so what other, Fan Wood Bernards and Hightstown have also, they've adopted the half acre. The next, probably the biggest topic is redevelopment. And what that means is basically, right now, if you add something to your property, stormwater is based on the difference between, it's only based on the increase in impervious coverage. What PEC is recommending that you take the site back to its natural condition. So even if it's 90% impervious right now and you actually reduce it to 80%, you would have to actually calculate your stormwater on 0 impervious. Again, don't have an issue with the concept, but I think it does have a major impact on development in town. Concern of a legal challenge. I'm not aware of anybody else in New Jersey that's doing that now. I'm not saying that nobody is, I'm just not aware of any other town. And again, you know, if we can make it work legally and work out the details, no objection to it. I just would like to see that kind of deferred to phase 2 of this process. Inspection. So inspection. The next topic would be mandatory inspections of, so now you have all these stormwater management systems that everybody has to do. Who's inspecting them? You know, currently, it's really nobody unless there's a complaint. So the proposal would be that you would actually have to get a permit, kind of a license for your stormwater system, and it would require quarterly inspection reports. And we didn't clarify whether it was just for commercial properties or it would be for single-family homes also. I know we talked about the implication on a single-family home, having to bring somebody in to inspect your system on a quarterly basis, submit a report. The other concern is from a staffing level is how do we administer that? I mean, I know we've had some conversations with Franklin, who's doing it. Single-family homes are exempt in Franklin. They didn't seem to have a problem with their system there with the inspections for commercial properties. But again, we just want to make sure that we don't rush into it and find out that there's issues.
So what is the ratio of commercial? Do we have any rough estimate? Because what good, it seems like for here, what good is doing commercial? Because it just wouldn't cover that much property, would it? Or
it's quite a few. I mean, everything the university does, anything any of the other schools are doing, PDS, you know, if you remember their plan, they had a lot of detention basins.
Okay, yeah.
Although Avalon Bay doesn't have a formal detention basin, they have a mechanical system that for water quality. So there are all these systems, but
So you think it's about half of our land is commercial? Or?
No, it's not half.
Not
but
half?
It's a big enough percentage where, you know, it's something that, you know, should be looked at. So next steps. What staff would like to see is phase 1, which means as soon as we put an ordinance together, which would probably be April, is we establish, we harmonize minor development, and it's not on there, but also put in the definition of impervious coverage, and then whether it's phase 2 and future considerations all in one shot. I didn't mention future considerations. One of the things that we looked at was you have a single-family home that for whatever reason the lot's too small, there's too much of an impact to do on-site stormwater management, that they pay to a fund. And with that fund, the town would do some type of regional stormwater management. Positives and negatives with that. Positives is you get some type of regional system, but the downside is if you take the tree streets or any of those other areas, what could the town possibly do to mitigate for somebody's addition in that area that impacts that direct area? So again, we like the idea, we just think it needs a little time for the town to develop. If we do a road project, what could we do on that road project to mitigate somebody's stormwater management from a single-family home? So we like the idea, just think it needs a little bit more thought and discussion. So that's basically our recommendation is again to do the minor development definition and to the impervious coverage. And hopefully over the next whatever time period, evaluate the other issues and come back at some point in the future.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. I think you laid everything out really clearly. I would just want to start, if there are any further questions from council. I think we'd like to hear from the public who came, and then we'll bring it back.